Hey, I'm the Warmaster, Josh Barnett, and you are listening to the Bootleg Universe podcast.
I want to buy a Black Lotus.
It's a lofty goal.
There's a laziness to me where I just kind of want the Black Lotus to appear,
Yeah.
you know? And I don't know how to go about buying a Black Lotus. And I guess for anyone who's listening who does not know what a Black Lotus is,
Which is probably a few.
which is probably a few fucking people. Magic the Gathering invented the collectible card game, right? So I think it's like Magic, Pokemon, and then there's a huge drop off. And then you've got like some other competitors like Yu-Gi-Oh. There was like Final Fantasy. There's a lot, and then you've got
Well, yeah. Now we have a ton of them. Yeah,
ton of
it
them.
really started with Magic.
But it started with Magic, and the most powerful Magic card during those first few editions before, flying got introduced and whatnot was the fucking Black Lotus.
It still is. It's a banned card except for only a couple formats.
Right. It was like the Rubies, Black Lotus, Juggernaut.
Well, there was the Moxes.
The
right?
Rock Boxes, yes.
Yeah. So you had, a Mox of different color because there's 5 colors in the game, and each color represents a certain elemental or a certain essence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I guess death is not an element; it is more of an essence. But like, black is death and pestilence, and white is, I guess you could call it like holiness and life, maybe justice, perhaps. Green is Gaia, the earth, nature, and also like creatures, big, gargantuan creatures. Blue is deceptiveness, trickery, cunning, and also just being an asshole. Fuck blue. And then you've got red, which is fire.
Fireballs.
And destructiveness.
And lightning.
And it's chaos.
Yeah.
So,
burn decks.
yeah.
Burn decks.
Boy, yeah, they can
That's
really
how I used to
wear you
play. Burn decks.
Boom, 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 boom,
Land
boom, boom.
tax, burn deck. You kind of white and red.
Was it a fireball? Crank all your mana into it. Boosh.
Exactly.
Yeah. But
Lightning.
but that
X number of mana, 3 damage.
that Black Lotus allows you to take any color that you need,
Yeah,
and that's huge when you're trying to put these things together.
for sure.
And early on, like I never had one, and I've had alpha and beta cards and things like that because as a kid growing up in Seattle, Risen of the Coast would have people at our conventions giving away starter decks to get us to play. And back then, there was a card, was it Chaos Orb, where you tear it up and you throw it over the playing field, and then whatever pieces it touches, you remove it from the game. And then there was ones that had to do with your bet, because you would bet the top card on your deck.
Yeah.
That didn't last very long.
No.
But that Black Lotus, it is, I think one sold for like $2 million or something crazy.
Fuck. It keeps going
Or
up
maybe
every year.
$100,000 or two.
It's like complete, because I remember when it was $900 and people would be like, oh my God.
I
there's
know,
a
that's
card,
insane.
Right? And now it's like 10,000, 30, 40, 50, and
Something.
it keeps going up. And to me, it's not like, oh, I want, it's not, I'm not looking at it as an investment. It's not like I want to get it and then flip it. But I don't think collectible card games are going away. In fact, I think they're going to become a bigger and bigger deal because they're already becoming digital. You have these digital collectible card games.
And I haven't followed up on that much. I know you have. I just mean like I know Magic the Gathering had a digital version of it where you literally purchased cards and decks and packs.
Didn't love it, but yeah, they had it. But now there's games that exist purely in the digital space. Their brand is built around digital collectible card game. There, The Witcher has one.
World of Warcraft.
World of Warcraft has one. Hearthstone, yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually feel like the Black Lotus at the end of the day is going to be a piece of, I mean, it is a piece of history. It's just a fucking piece of history, right? It is the first collectible card that meant something to a lot of people.
I think there is inherent value in it in a lot of different ways, regardless of the monetary consideration. It is a artifact.
It is an
artifact.
It is an artifact. You know what I'm saying?
But
it's an artifact.
it is in a very postmodern sense. It has literally become a real world artifact as well as one in the game structure.
And it is an artifact also, not just in the real world structure, but within the real world structure. It is a nerd artifact, right? It is a nerd artifact. Like if someone comes over and you're like, "Yo, here's my Infinity Gauntlet." Okay, cool. Those are mass produced. Mm-hmm. Here's my copy of Snatcher unopened. What? You have Snatcher? I have Snatcher. And then here's my Black Lotus. You know what I mean? You have like instant nerd cred.
Yeah, they're like, whoa, where the hell did you get that? How long have you had that one? Have you ever played with it? It opens a lot of questions as soon as it shows up. So my only concern is the digitization of the world, and that I love what makes this card special outside of its actual in-game usage characteristics is that there's no more of them other than what were produced.
Yes.
And that is amazing. But if things go into a digital sense, what does that mean for our physical items? And then how do you create scarcity amongst digital items? I think maybe using a blockchain, you could do
100%.
that.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
That's literally would be my strategy. I would buy the Black Lotus, then fly out to, I don't remember the name of the artist that drew the actual Black Lotus, get him to sign it. Mm-hmm. Then create an NFT out of it and store the Black Lotus card in like a digital, like an actual lockbox in like Sotheby's or like a Sotheby's type spot, and the NFT and code the NFT. I'm saying this like I've made a bunch of fucking NFTs. Like I don't like like I talk a big game, dude.
I just think you think about a lot of this stuff.
I think about a lot
to long levels of iteration, and then you're like, okay, I feel like I have at least some kind of a roadmap as
right. I have a strategy, but I'm also not going to execute the strategy unless someone literally does every step for me.
Yeah.
And I just kind of, but yeah, then I would code the NFT or I would have someone code the NFT so that it's not just a fucking NFT. It's an ownership certificate of this lockbox and the card in it.
Wow, that's a pretty daunting project. Yeah, okay.
No, it's like 3 steps.
Well,
Someone that's not like technologically challenged. I'm not technologically challenged. I'm just kind of lazy.
You sure?
This is a lot of steps, and you got to like vet it, right? You got to vet it. You got to like figure out that you're not buying like a fake Black Lotus. That's the thing. Like,
I was just thinking, like, how do you figure out what the buy-in is and to what, like, to how many, and then
how many? What do you mean?
Well, like if someone could, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things that could go with that. I guess it's just really more about like once you start creating the foundation, then you can decide how far you go with it and what you do with it at that point. But you don't do anything until you have the thing.
Until you have the Black Lotus. Yeah.
But never owned a Black Lotus. I don't think I ever owned any Moxes, but I did lose a bunch of cards a long time ago.
Dude, so I used to keep them all in a binder. And I had fucking Sheevan Dragons, Balduvian Hordes, Doomsdays, which weren't like that great of a card, but it's called Doomsday, which is kind of dope. And I also I really liked the way, I never played black with the black cards, but I liked the way they looked because they were all like dark and kind of gothic. I had like a bunch of fireballs, light, all that stuff. Someone stole the whole fucking binder.
Yeah, mine didn't even get stolen. I think I just did something dumb and left them somewhere, and that was the end of that.
Well,
like whatever decks I was.
In all fairness, if someone had to steal from you, I don't think they'd be stealing from you. I'm someone that might maybe you would consider stealing from.
That would be a horrible thing. No one should steal from you. No one should steal from anyone.
No, they shouldn't.
No.
But I'm too nice. You know, someone steals from me, I'm like, they probably need it more than I need it, so they can just have
these
it.
magic cards.
You know, like someone stole my GPS. When I first moved to LA, someone like broke into my car and like stole my GPS.
They probably didn't know what the hell it was. They're like, oh my God, what is this thing? A GPS.
I moved in 2008. So this point, like, you know, GPSs weren't like this rare thing, but it was like, you know, this is when you like attached the GPS because they never come, they weren't built into the car yet.
I know what you mean. You know, it wasn't as widely available in '08
right.
as it was now.
Right,
and like
exactly.
The standalone GPS, but now you see one of those and you're like, wow, what a relic.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You kind of feel bad for the person.
I remember the first time I ever saw really GPSs in wide use was living in Tokyo in the early 2000s.
Wow.
And that was like crazy to me. But go on.
No, yeah, someone stole my GPS, and my roommate at the time was like, "Oh my God, you must be so pissed." And I was like, "No, man, maybe someone was trying to figure out how to get home. They like needed the GPS. It's cool."
That's an optimistic way of looking at it. I'd have been super pissed, just not even for the GPS. For me, like someone stealing something, it's about everything that leads up to the act itself.
For sure.
And for me, it would be like, oh, did you break my window to do it? Now I have a car that doesn't have a functioning window. Then I have to go get that replaced. And then this GPS, if I want to replace it, you know, it'll cost me, you know, X amount of dollars. Now, X dollar, every single dollar that I make is going to take me this many hours of work to then achieve back to that. Like all the effort and all the labor I'm going to have to put in to be able to have that thing again the way I had it before.
For sure, yeah.
Before somebody decided to intrude into my world, then I'm like, okay, well that's a thing. You know, money is one thing, but the time it takes to create it is another. And so it's my time and my labor ultimately that is like the ultimate like sting.
For sure. I totally see that perspective.
But
for me, it's now it's just time. Like when something breaks, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to take me, you know, 4 phone calls and being on hold and dealing with it. And then I'm like, oh, I can just hand it off to this person and then they'll do it. But still, like, I'm like, now I have to talk to the person that I'm handing it off to explain to them the thing. It's just as I've gotten busier in life, and as I feel like my capacity to deal with stuff has gotten like smaller and smaller and smaller, I've become more like that.
I think one thing that is probably maybe not necessity, but close to it for living in our current world is someone that knows how to get beyond all of the bullshit and get to the things you actually need or that can actually deliver the product or service that they say they will. Because it's an inundation of all these things, all trying to tell you that they can deliver the thing that you want faster and cheaper than the other guy. The reality is, no, most of them can't. Or most of them are incapable of doing it to the level of quality that you would expect. And
what are you talking about?
Anything. Go to a Best Buy.
I mean, Amazon's fucking great.
Yeah, they can deliver it, but you have to know anything about that item, you're going to have to do like a shit ton of research. Like there's no one at Amazon to tell you whether this is actually a good item or not.
Yeah, for sure.
Or how well it's produced.
Well, this feels to me like if something were to break, it's that. It's like the Wi-Fi goes down, you're fucked.
Yeah.
You're fucked. Because you're hoping that it's something as stupid as like, oh, you didn't plug in the box or something.
Or you can just reset it. Yeah.
Right. If the resetting it doesn't work, you're fucked. Because you're going to be on the phone with like 30 people from all over the world.
Yes.
Who are going to ask you, hey, is it plugged in?
Well, that's the thing is like
because no one knows how all the components work together because they've all been outsourced.
Yes. That and
apart,
whoever the person that knows how all the components work together is probably 1 out of 1,000 that are all there to push papers around or ask you questions or ask you, did you plug it in? Is it plugged in? And you know, that kind of thing. Not to mention when it comes to stuff like Wi-Fi and these microprocessors and circuit boards, they're not the kind of thing that you can just pull out a bunch of tools on your desk and fix.
Yeah.
Some people that are really into electronics might be able to do that, but then they might not even be able to get access to the proper tools, replacement pieces that, let's say, Asus used, and it was utterly proprietary.
For sure.
So a lot of this stuff isn't really made to be fixed at all. And that's part of the design. And that's a wider ethos in consumer construction, especially in electronics at large.
Yeah.
I mean, I
wonder if part of this is due to like customization as well. You know?
I think it really comes down to the overemphasis on marketing, profit, efficiency. It's all what I've heard referred to as line go upism. It's just like, oh, as long as line goes up, that's good. And the idea, this historicist Oswald Spengler has this concept of the West as being Faustian man, and ever like being concerned with the infinite, with like infinite growth, with always being able to just constantly create, and you can even step over and break things apart and just create new, and just it's all about creation, striving and driving into like an infinite, never-ending perspective.
You know, I feel like this is partially why I want this Black Lotus really bad, because it's a callback to a time where someone spent years meticulously crafting this game. Someone spent, not one person, multiple artists spent, years, months, lot of time, lot of energy, a lot of life force to like draw these like paintings that would end up on the card, right? Like there was like a craftsmanship that went into Magic the Gathering and the construction of it and the art around it that, I just have I love it. I have a lot of admiration for it, and I have a lot of nostalgia for it. The other artifact that I would buy, have you heard of the Timothy Oulton spaceship?
No, I have not. Oh wow,
it's huge.
It's a giant lounge.
It's a giant lounge, yeah. But if you keep scrolling, you'll see like you go inside it. It fits a lot of people. You just kind of put it in the middle of a house.
Oh, this is so very 70s.
Yeah. Because I have nostalgia for 70s. Again, I wasn't alive in the 70s, but I have nostalgia for 70s furniture, 70s like music systems. Like there was like a craftsmanship.
Dude, you and me both.
There was a craftsmanship there, right? That was like dope.
Yeah, I have late 70s, early 80s Kenwood setup my dad bought way back when, and I keep it. Oh, it's dope,
right?
I keep it around, and if any of it needs to be, and this was actually going to lead into another little point I was going to make about the difference between a lot of what you would consume, like products you might consume these days versus products in the past. The first VCR we ever owned was from like 1984, and it was a Panasonic, and it weighed probably like 35 pounds. But the thing is, even as I got into university, we kept, if something went down in it, we just took it to a guy and he just fixed it. And the only problem that got to a certain point was, of course, there's a time of having your item off being fixed. What do you use if you needed to watch a tape or record things or whatever? But also, the parts were becoming less and less and less available. Like it was almost as if like there was no concern for you to be able to fix this anymore.
Right.
But any person that this VCR was ever taken to, and it didn't break down a lot, and it lasted 30 years. They just said, never get rid of this. They don't make them like this anymore. They're just not this durable, not this fixable. And it had a real impact on me. My dad was a big hunter and fisher, but he was also a hobbyist with firearms. And for him, he was, as a kid, you'd see something cool and new, and he's like, yeah, whatever. His thing was buying Winchester rifles made before 1964 because of the steel that they used in them and the way it was designed. And
the craftsmanship. Even
for me in these days, if I was to go and buy something like a rifle of some sort, there's all kinds of cool stuff that exists nowadays. And I'm not saying that it's bad per se in any way, but I'm more inclined to go back to say something maybe even from the 30s or 40s and go buy something maybe like an old Steyr or some or if I could afford it, a Wesley Richards, made in England, Steyr made in Austria, because you could find these sometimes and they would have engraving on them, checkering in the wood, and that's all been done by hand. And they're just the people that can do that anymore don't exist. And so you'll find these things. Yeah. And this buddy of mine at his shop, he sold this Wesley Richards takedown rifle that all comes apart and it fits into a case and you can carry the case with you. And it was made for some Maharaja at some point. And it was in 425 Wesley Richards. And he put it together and he's showing it to me, and the engraving across this thing, the hand built aspect of the item itself. And it doesn't matter if you do or don't like guns, doesn't matter whatsoever. Just looking at an object that has been crafted by someone that is this level of an artisan, such a master at what they do. You could hate firearms and just look at it and at least go, I see it. I get it. You know,
totally.
I want nothing to do with guns, but holy crap, whatever someone did with this thing is insane.
It makes sense. There's a buddy of mine. I try to show you a photo real quick, but it's the same thing. It's like, and this is helping me connect why specifically, again, I like the Black Lotus and all these things, because I'm into this craftsmanship in a world that's becoming more and more digital and more kind of less deep.
Well, I also think part of that reason, and this is a Spenglerian concept, and that is people have forgotten. They don't remember what it was to even have those skills anymore, and there isn't people around to teach them these things. And back to professional wrestling, who teaches a pro wrestler how to be an actual fighter first? Like Inoki had them do with the New Japan Dojo with Karl Gotch, or how Billy Robinson and Vern Gagne is working with people in the barn in the AWA era. Who exists to do that?
For sure.
And so if someone, says something about these, interesting, very pop culture related, I see. Yeah.
But he
makes it all.
He makes it all by hand, and he repurposes Louis Vuitton and Gucci, and he makes these like custom artifacts, one of a kind. So he made me like a Star Wars AT-AT walker out of a Louis Vuitton handbag.
Okay.
And he made me the red Power Ranger helmet out of a Louis Vuitton handbag.
That's wild.
And like, this dude's dope. He's dope. He made Lil Nas X the Infinity Gauntlet out of a handbag. Like, he made Nicki Minaj like a Melina from Mortal Kombat face mask with like a Gucci face mask. This dude's dope. He like lives in Michigan. He used to work in shoes, and that's mine.
Well, and you can have whatever argument you want to be about what he creates, in terms of whatever your aesthetic may be. But I'm gonna fashion a guess that when you put your hands on these things, they feel like they're entirely seriously built. Like someone
your
really
Panasonic, like your Panasonic VCR. Yeah.
Someone's 100%. But it's so easy to get lost in like, oh, well, Louis Vuitton, shit. It doesn't matter.
I'm not,
Hold the thing, grab the thing, look at this. Do you think you could make this? And could you make it as finely detailed and as well constructed as this? And it's like, oh, well, you could make a simulacra of it, but you couldn't actually make the thing.
Yeah. And totally hear you, totally agree. And when I say Louis Vuitton, I don't mean like, oh, it's because there's something to taking something that's pristine and not to be touched, and he's like cutting it up and then,
And piecing it on
something else. It's funny. It's funny to me.
He has
it's like I bought this hoodie to spray because I'm going to spray paint it. Like, gives me validation on it. Like validation, because I think this is funny. Because I don't know, I'm like that guy.
At the end of the day, I think really the universal through all this is the one, not thinking that just because you're here and now that anything you do is utterly original to the point of being alien. And in fact, there's a lot of things that came before you that can lead you into even new interpretations within, the cultural landscapes that exist now, and how there's so much more alike than there ever was any different. As if human beings were ever any different kind of creature than they are today, because I don't believe they are. If from the oldest religious texts, the oldest books you can find, the oldest, you could find some sort of cuneiform tablet, and it'll describe people with the same sort of foibles and neuroses and wants and needs and everything as we have now. So if you think that a human being needs something different than a human being has needed forever, then you're looking to try and serve something other than humans. And with that, do everything like you mean it and have real care and sincerity about what it is you do, and take it seriously as not just you handling this object, but that all these other people handled it up to this point. And even if they managed to kind of, zig and zag a little bit too much and get a bit janky, and they kind of broke some pieces on, they had to glue it back together. It's now in your hands, and it's your custodianship, and you can do something with it, and you could restore it perhaps. Maybe it won't look exactly the same, but maybe with what you have, you can at least create something that embodies what it was, and it still be correct.
That's amazing. That's an amazing, yeah. Because like on some level, that's what MJF's doing with wrestling.
He's being a real heel.
He's being a real fucking heel.
And that is something to be appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like, yeah. Ed the Strangler Lewis is like very happy right now. He's like, yes, this fucking guy got it.
I'm sure him and Mox are going to have a hell of a match.
Yeah. 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 I'm into it. I'm like, this feels real. This feels cool.